Hello, if you're watching this you probably saw the overview and subscribed, or one of my posts to Reddit. Either way, this is the first tutorial I promised, sorry it's a bit late, but yeah, I'm just going to get into it. As I said before, these are a more in-depth tutorial on the waxworking components of this modified Asante casting technique. I will do the actual carving of a ring pattern and some gating. By and large I do rings. I've done some amulets, but I mostly do rings at the moment since it's just what I got into this to do. So I'll be covering the process from how I would do it with a ring, but the process is pretty much the same in all cases. Okay, so tools. I use a variety of tools. You could just use the jeweler's saw and the bench knife, as I said in the overview, but it is made much easier with a few more tools. I have a wax reamer and a steel ring mandrel. That's this thing here. As you can see, it's got the sizes on it. You ream out the inside of some wax tube to get the size of the ring that you want. That's really all it does. This one in particular is pretty blunt and apparently not very good. I wouldn't really know. But I like it. It does the job. It's certainly necessary if you want to size well. If you're just sizing for yourself, it's not a big deal, but this way I can have someone tell me that they want a size 8 ring and I can actually make them a size 8 ring. This is the steel ring mandrel, basically just a heavy steel ring mandrel. It's sort of like an anvil, but for rings. So you can put like a piece of round wire on it and then hammer it into the shape of the size that you want and make a ring. That's basically all it is. I just check the size of the ring reamer after I'm done to make sure that everything works, and usually it does. On occasion I've had to use it to fix up a ring in metal when I've messed it up, but that's about it. This next tool I would pretty much consider essential, but I didn't put on the list. It makes the job a lot easier. It's got a coarse and a fine. It's a wax file. You can just use it to get the general shape out of the wax that you want and some of the refining. It's certainly very helpful for that. I also have a few files. These are actually metal files, but because they come in a bunch of shapes, it makes it a lot easier to carve out complicated shapes in rings. So they're not essential, but they certainly help a lot, these sort of shapes. I also have little tools like these. These are definitely not essential. I barely ever use them. They're just little wax carving tools. I got them a long time ago from Rio Grande. They're not great, but they do the trick sometimes when I need to get really fine. I also use one of these, which I've managed to decimate. This is a Max Wax pen. It heats up wax. It's a great way to repair breaks or damage to a ring. Typically after filing at it for a while it'll end up breaking, falling apart, and you need to repair it with heat. So this thing has a little element on the end that gets hot. It's a great tool to make up for mistakes. Not essential, but realistically when you work on something that thin you're gonna break it every once in a while. Also it's just a nail file. I just use it to refine down the ring, make it look pretty. Obviously you need to use it to refine down as much as possible. Jewelers use progressively finer sandpaper, but this is all I go for. And that's the tools. Okay, different waxes. I work primarily with wax tube, because that's what you use to make jewelry like rings. That's this stuff. You get it from places like Rio Grande, or really any jewelry supplier. You can get it off eBay certainly. You use it to make rings, that's why it's a tube. I prefer this shape, because it allows me to make some pretty thick rings. That's about it really, it's just wax tube. There is a variety of different colours. What the colours are is hardness, and how workable and ductile it is. This isn't wax tube, this is sprue wax, but it's red wax, which is very soft, which is the reason why people don't tend to use it for fine work. It holds fine detail horribly, which is why it's typically used as sprue wax. This blue stuff is pretty much the intermediary. It's okay, it holds fine detail, not great, but it does it okay, especially for someone starting out. So I'd certainly recommend using this if you're only just starting out. It's soft enough that it's not a big deal to cut through or work with, so it's a good place to start. Lately I have been using green tube wax. It's a little harder, it's a little more annoying to work, however, it definitely holds fine detail much better. And I'll be making future videos that document the making of these rings, but what matters is this thin, especially for this part here, that's less than 1 millimeter in thickness. that would not be possible in blue wax. It would have broken a million times. That said, it did break 3 or 4 times when I was actually doing this one, and I had to repair it. But yes, green wax is by far the best choice in regards to any fine detailed work. There is finer forms and such. It really depends on the supplier. Sometimes they mess with the colours. But yeah, this would be the thing that I would start with. And to anyone who's doing this, before you ever even make the furnace, try and make a few rings in wax. It's really where you have to start. It's pretty forgiving. Wax is a very forgiving material. Okay, the overall process. I don't know if I have particularly good videos of this, so you'll have to make do with what I can provide at the moment. I start by just thinking of what I want. Sometimes I draw out some parts, but I have a hand tremor, so anything I draw is terrible anyway. I just try to imagine what I'm going for, maybe draw out some of the size stuff on a piece of paper so I get it, and then I go from there. I start cutting away at the wax. I cut a piece of wax from the tube, which I sort of just estimate the amount I need. Always cut more than you need. You will regret it if you cut far too little. It takes forever to melt new wax onto it, and it's very disappointing to discard a piece of wax if you've just screwed it up. After that, I just ream out the inside with the ring reamer, and check the size on the mandrel. It's important to take note of the fact that the wax expands during the burnout, so make the ring size when you're actually reaming it out about half a size bigger than you need, because it will actually, due to the expansion, add a little bit to the size. With that done, I use the jeweler's saw and the wax file to sort of carve out a gross form of the ring, and using some fine tools like the bench knife or sometimes the smaller metal files and wax carving tools, I add the fine detail. Once you've got very close to what you want, you can start refining down its surface and making it nice and smooth, which for this I use a nail file. Jewelers use the progressively finer sandpaper. The nail file works for me, so I'm not going to change now, and I've been using the same file for 2 years, so I've had good use. The more time you spend smoothing out the ring, the less time you will waste cleaning the ring up in metal. So be very careful at this step. Also be very careful because fine rings tend to break, especially when you're smoothing them out. This is why I consider the Max Wax pen technically not essential, but for anything fine, it is definitely necessary because you will break it and you will need to repair it. After giving it a final look over, you can polish it off if you want. I haven't found that it really does much, so just give the ring a look over, and you're ready to prepare the gating. Okay, gating. As this is a lost wax method, after we burn away the ring pattern, we still need a path for the metal to enter the ring, which is called a sprue. This is the tapered entry, which when burned out will funnel the liquid bronze into the ring pattern. In the past I also added a riser to allow air a path out of the mold when the metal entered, and I used a very thick sprue that once cast took several hours to cut away from the ring. Both of these I found were not necessary, and the ring would cast successfully anyway, so all I use now is a sprue which tapers from the width of my crucible down to a couple of millimeters before it enters the pattern. This is achieved by creating a funnel in wax. I use red sprue wax, but any soft wax will do. I press the red wax together till it makes the shape I need, and then I make sure that it's fused together with the Max Wax pen. Since it's the sprue, we are going to melt it down again later anyway, so you don't need to go to any serious effort to make it cleaned up or anything. And that's it. That's about as much as I know for making a wax ring pattern and gating. I have a couple of other videos you can check out if you haven't seen these yet. Leave a like if you found this video useful, and comment if you want me to elaborate on anything. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos. Okay, thanks.